League questions? Call 540-0580, 540-0580. Call in now. We'll take a question here on the air and answer it. And to update you, I had a jury trial this week in Lancaster County. My client was accused of an armed robbery. He says that it was actually a drug deal gone bad and that the drug dealers opened fire when he and his compatriot didn't want to pay for the drugs because they didn't think the amount was right. Now, as with all criminal trials, he was in the wrong time at the wrong place doing things he probably shouldn't have done. But nonetheless, the government seems to have it all backwards. Well, the jury hung on the robbery charges, 7 to acquit, 5 to convict, which is always interesting that people can see the same set of facts said differently. But they all could agree that there was no gun in my client's hand, so they acquitted him of that. So we won the gun charge, and the government didn't win the other ones. We had hung, so we had to go back and retry it in Lancaster County if the government goes forward. Of course, interestingly, one of the jurors told me that one thing most of the jurors could agree on is that the entire case seemed to be a waste of taxpayer dollars. So that's always interesting to know as well. Bill, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's going on?
Yeah, Carl. I just got some questions of curiosity. First of all, have you ever had the opportunity to argue before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court?
I have.
What's their makeup? How many are there, and are they more conservative, or the men and women, or what? Can you give me a little insight on that?
And I don't want to put my foot in my mouth because obviously I can't think of the exact count, but it's majority male. Last I checked, the makeup is seven judges, and it's interesting. In Pennsylvania, if a court has 8 or more judges on it, they elect who the president or chief justice is. In Pennsylvania, it's based on seniority, so the person who's been on the longest becomes basically the chief judge of the court.
Huh.
The 7 judges sit in Harrisburg. They will sit in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh as well. They have chambers in each location. And they hear cases only by permission, generally. They do have original jurisdiction in gambling matters. They do have original jurisdiction in a couple other matters, and they have what's called King's Bench, which means they can take any case any time away from any other lower court and do it themselves. But as a general rule, they only hear cases after you file what's called a petition for allowance of appeal. And then in Pennsylvania, they grant what's called aliquotter. If you follow the Supreme Court of the United States, they grant certiorari. Basically, aliquotter and certiorari are 2 words for the same thing, meaning we're going to take the case and talk about it and make a decision. One of the judges on the court once said to me, and I thought it was pretty telling, he said, I do not sit on an error correction court, meaning if you come up there and you just want to say the judges below got it wrong, that's not going to fly with them generally, because in order for them to find that the court below simply did it wrong, they'd have to find that the trial judge did it wrong and that the three judges of the appellate court minimum, who also looked at the case from the Superior or the Commonwealth Court, who usually sit in 3-judge panels, also did it wrong. And so you basically, if you're saying that they just were plain wrong, then you're saying that at least 4 judges didn't know what they were doing. So instead, what they want to hear is why the law should be different or why the current interpretation of the law is flawed. So not that the court did an error of simply missed the boat, but rather that these circumstances require either an answer to a question of law that's never been exactly answered before, which is a good way to get there.
Which are you saying is establishing new precedent then?
Correct. Or conversely, there's conflicting precedent. In other words, maybe 2 panels of the Superior Court reach different results that, in whatever case you have completely differ with one another. And so then they sort of straighten it out. And then also on policy questions. So, like a question I could think of was that I took, the case I argued, and we actually won it, was when courts award attorney's fees, do they award actual attorney's fees or reasonable attorney's fees? And I argued on behalf of my client. I would obviously argue any position, but the one I was asked to argue and that we won was to read reasonableness in. So even if a contract or divorce settlement says, this goes for all business contracts, actual attorney's fees, the court still can't award an unreasonable attorney's fee. And the theory being that because the courts have supervisory power over lawyers, they can't really aid and abet a lawyer, even if somebody already agreed to it, to an unreasonable fee. So, what else you want to know about them?
The makeup is like when you look at the U.S. Supreme Court. There's like right now there's 5 that are more conservative and 4 that are more liberal, or 4 and 4 and 1. Or is there a makeup?
Yeah, there's basically usually a rough split between Republicans and Democrats on the court here in Pennsylvania. The judicial philosophy of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overall is probably more conservative than liberal, if that makes sense.
Well, that was very informative. That's what I wanted to know. I just wanted a better idea of what. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That was very insightful.
And just keep in mind, and here in Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania Democrat is usually a little more conservative than a Massachusetts Democrat. So even our court as a whole, even though it's split between Republicans and Democrats, think about our state. We have Governor Ridge, who's Republican but pro-abortion. We have Casey, who's Democrat but anti. Our statewide politics tends to straddle the middle a little more, and I think our court reflects that. Do our governors appoint any Supremes, or are they all elected? They are elected, although if a vacancy is created, I believe that they can appoint somebody temporarily, but they've got to get confirmation through the legislature, which creates a big political problem most of the time. All right, Bill.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bill. Great show.
Thank you very much.
Bye now.
Carl Rominger here, the show's weekend appointment. I'm answering your legal questions, 540-0580. Dave, you're on WHP 580.
Hey, Carl, how you doing?
Good.
I was stopped at a DUI checkpoint last weekend, and I blew a .085. And this is my second offense. I was promptly arrested. My question is this. Do I need to spend upwards of $800 on an attorney, or are there just certain mandatory penalties that I can't avoid?
Well, let me explain it this way, because here's how. Let's pretend you just called me up at the office, okay? And secretary puts you through, and you ask me basically that question. I'll tell you exactly what I tell clients. Listen, you can go in there, you can plead guilty. You're going to do a couple days in jail. You're going to lose your driver's license for a year, and you're not going to get an occupational limited license because it's a second offense, and they won't do that with PennDOT, okay?
Right.
So you got a 1-year hard driver's license loss. You're probably going to do 3 days in jail or 5 days in jail. I think it's 5 days on a second offense, lowest tier. Now, the other hand, do you really want to just throw in the towel and do that? Because here's a couple things we could do. Number one, how do you know that test is accurate? Did they do all the things? Did they do all the things they needed to do to make sure that machine's results are admissible?
I couldn't tell you that, but I gave the blood test, and pending that result.
Right. What's the accuracy of the blood test? Which one did they employ? These are all questions I ask and I look at. Was that a constitutionally legal checkpoint? Did they do all the many, many things they needed to do to make that checkpoint legal? Now, people go, oh, I'm sure they did. Well, guess what? When you're in my business, you discover, 1 out of 3 times there's a fatal defect in a case. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get acquitted, but it might mean that we might plead you to something different. So maybe what we would do is work out a plea to something called reckless endangerment on the theory that you drank and you drove and you endangered folks, and you're going to agree to go ahead and do 5 days worth of jail time so they get their jail time. But instead of 6 months of supervision, which is the statutory max on the second offense DUI lowest tier, they can have 12 months or 24 months of supervision, which is possible with the reckless endangerment crimes code charge, but there's no effect on your driver's license. So there's all these different ways it could be resolved. You could be acquitted. I could get it dismissed on a constitutional defect. The two sides could work out a resolution that everybody can live with. I mean, maybe you don't care about your driver's license, but you don't want to go to jail. Maybe you care about your driver's license and you don't care about jail. Or maybe at the end of the day you get stuck swallowing the 5 days in jail and the 1-year loss of license despite all the efforts of your attorney. So there's no great answer except to tell you that when you go up to bat in baseball, a good batting average is what, 300? I mean, does that sound right? I don't know. Right. Shane, is 300 a good batting average?
That's really high. I would say maybe like 250, 275.
Okay. Yeah, I always.
300's really high.
Well, there you go. So that's what about you're going to hit 1 in 6 balls or something like that, or 1 in 4 balls.
About 1 in 4.
About 1 in 4. And I always say that's about how DUIs work. You know, you're gonna get completely acquitted at like a normal batting average. You know, 1 in 4, 1 in 5, somewhere in that range. On the other hand,
I was reading the results of the blow test that they're 1 in 4 are actually over the limit when they show up.
Yeah,
I mean people are actually under.
And I can tell you the actual, and I got to go to break here. But if you want to get in contact with me off the air, I'd be happy to talk to you and happy to help you out because I don't think you should just plead guilty. That's always my advice because more often than not, you're going to do better than what they're going to try to stick you with if you just show up and say, I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks,
my friend.
Carl. Appreciate it.
Thank you. 540-0580. See you after the break. Five 540-0580, the talk line number. Call in. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. You know, the last caller, before I take another caller, was asking me about a DUI and, you know, second offense, what can I do? Just throw in the towel. The government wants you to think there's nothing you can do. Click it or ticket, you know, you DUI, you can't afford it, all those sayings. There are a lot of things you can do. Remember, being charged with a crime and convicted of a crime are two very separate questions. And whether you're wholly innocent or guilty of sin, your likelihood of conviction is really more dependent upon the status of the case than it is your actual innocence or guilt, which is a terrible thing at some level. However, our system's pretty good at vindicating the innocent most of the time, not all the time. In fact, a lot of good people end up behind bars for no other reason. They're in the wrong place at the wrong time, and some crazy eyewitness testimony puts them there. Nobody wants to ever admit that, but over the years they've clawed a couple hundred people out of life sentences who didn't do anything, including some death sentences as well. And it looks like we may have executed an innocent guy down in Texas recently, but that's besides the point. My point is, make sure you do go see a lawyer if you're charged with a crime. And if you're called by the police, this drives me nuts. Well, Carl, the police called me, so I went down and talked to them. Well, guess what? You don't have to talk to the police ever. And more importantly, you have the right to have a lawyer present. So if the police call you up and tell you to come down, call the lawyer. And if the police tell you don't need a lawyer, get 2 lawyers. Remember that. Mike, you're on WHP 580. Hi, Mike.
Hi, this is Mike. How you doing, Carl?
Good, man. Good. What's going on?
Hi, my wife had a home daycare for about 20 years, and my son had to move back in because of financial reasons. When he moved back in, with him, he had brought... he was charged with a Megan law offense. Of course, my wife stopped the daycare.
Right.
Now, my son's on his feet now, and he's ready to move out and so forth. After he's gone, my wife wants to start the daycare back up. Is something like that advisable? We know he knows not to stop by the daycare and so forth. It
right.
just seems the address won't be connected to him anymore, but people and stigma and so forth.
Well, I can't tell you. I can't tell you what the right answer is. I can tell you that I wait till he's gone a little bit of time because I know the Megan's Law website, for instance, doesn't get updated very quickly. Best anybody can tell.
Okay.
So you want to make sure that his address on there has changed. Number 2 is, I would want to make sure he doesn't stop by at any time because obviously that's going to create that's when the scandal could be created. Yeah,
and he's all aware of it and so forth.
The other question is he on for the 10-year or the lifetime registration?
The 10-year.
10-year, okay. So generally, the class of offense that's going to be associated with that's going to be more minor.
It's a minor Megan law offense, but any Megan law offense, everybody looks at it in the same stigma light and so forth.
Right,
so.
And she can't have him. I mean, as a daycare provider, she obviously can't have him on the premise because he wouldn't pass any of the legal background checks.
No, and everybody's aware of that. We just wanted to know if there was any.
There's no such thing as guilt by association, and the sins of our children and the sins of our fathers are not around, if that makes sense.
Pardon me?
I said there's no such thing as guilt by association, and the sins of our children and the sins of our fathers are not our own. So keeping that in mind, as long as, there's obviously going to be some people who might go, well, I'm not going to take my kid there because they're related to somebody on Megan's list. But I think most people wouldn't care. I mean, we're all indirectly related to some pretty bad people, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried about after that then. I mean, as long as, he's not stopping by and they find out then, I mean, there's no recourse thing to come back on us and say, well, you knew your son was, but you didn't disclose it or anything. But like you said,
yeah, as long as he's not there and you're not exposing the kids to him, I don't see what the issue is.
Okay. All right. That answers my question then.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Carl.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, it's always tough. And the Megan's Law list is always interesting because you can get on there for doing all the things that we think you could get on there for. But you can also get on there if you are 17 and you turn 18 and you're dating this 14-year-old girl. And so you were 17 and she was 14, so you're 3 or more years older, except it turns out you're actually 4 or more years older. And then, because you're 4 or more years older and she's under the age and you're of the age, you can go to jail and you can get a Megan's Law offense. So sometimes when you see that somebody's on the Megan's Law list, you should at least go and look carefully and see, because I don't think, and I'm just going to editorialize here a little bit, but an 18-year-old who slept with a 14-year-old is not the same as a 54-year-old who molested a 6-year-old. At least somewhere in my book, they're not the same person. Somebody's going to argue with me. Call in and argue with me. 540-0580. Or a 17-year-old who sexted a picture of herself over to her boyfriend would also end up on the Megan's Law list if convicted of production of child pornography. And so while two 17-year-olds can be naked together, they can't take pictures of themselves and send it to the other one because that's a felony. Dorothy, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. Hi, Dorothy.
Hello. In April of this year, I signed a 2-year contract with DirecTV.
Okay.
Everything was good at first. Then a problem started, and I figured it was because of the satellite, and it would clear up. The sound is very poor. It's muffled, and sometimes most times, too hard to hear.
Okay.
I've been complaining, and I have spoken to many of their people, and they just keep giving me excuses or saying many people are complaining and DirecTV is fixing the problem with the satellite and so forth, should be done soon. In order to get out of that contract with them and stop the service, it would cost me $480. My question is, am I legally liable for that $480 since they're not providing the good service that they are supposed to?
Well, I'd have to read the contract to make sure that the terms of it didn't include that they could provide poor service, et cetera, et cetera. But to the extent that it's a consumer contract and they're not providing what they claim they would provide, and if they're acknowledging they have a problem, they should release you from the contract. And I think that you would not be legally responsible as a general rule. On the other hand, the way it works with big companies is they will simply just report you out as owing the money and put it on your credit report and send somebody after you.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have to come find somebody like me to beat up on them, and then you're going to end up spending some money as well. And maybe we get your attorney's fees back, maybe we don't. So that's always the dilemma with those things. The flip side is sometimes if I write a letter to them, and that those kinds of letters run anywhere from $45 to $75 depending on the attorney and complexity. A lot of times they'll let you out when they get a letter from an attorney because they realize that they're in the wrong. They know they're in the wrong. They're just never going to admit it at this point.
I know, but I don't think I should be paying $480.
Right, and I agree. But I guess what I'm trying to tell you is your legal remedies and your ability to get out from underneath it are clear. Yes. The question is whether or not you're going to have to do a little more than simply refuse to pay it.
Okay, now, well, as you know, an attorney would charge me quite a bit to send a letter. Is there any attorney for seniors that I can speak to write this letter for me?
Well, the short answer is I don't know. You can call the Bar Association and see if they have any referrals. I know that most of the pro bono operations out there, like legal services, probably wouldn't get involved in a civil matter like this. They usually stick to child custody, landlord-tenant, PFAs, and things like that.
Yeah.
But I would tell you that, $75 letter is still a lot cheaper than a $400 bill hanging out there.
Well, who can I pay the $75? Who would do it for me?
Well, that's something that my firm could take care of, absolutely.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Please give me the name and address.
It's Rominger and Associates.
Oh, Rominger. How do you spell that?
Rominger.
Yeah.
And it's Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Carlisle.
And the phone number there is 241
Yes?
6070.
6070. 241-6070.
Yep, give us a call, Dorothy.
I will. Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, big companies are always a pain like that. I got Bob and Kevin holding, and I'll take you guys after the break. 540-0580. Carl Rominger here on WHP 580. Hey, 540-0580. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. And maybe coming to a courtroom near you. Follow me on Twitter. I do post Twitter posts, and they, of course, go on my Facebook as well. But you can see them on the front of weekendappointment.com, that wonderful website where you can get the free wills. But that way, if you ever wanted to see me in court, you could do that. Sometimes during a jury trial, they are kind of interesting to watch. This last one had a few of those, fun moments where, actually my favorite was I asked this one witness, why did you just lie to the jury? And he kind of looks at me, and I was like, you said, and I forgot what exactly he said, but the district attorney, of course, sensing that his witness was lying through his teeth, immediately did what any good attorney would do, jumped up and said, objection! And the judge looks at his pad and goes, no, I got it right here. That's exactly what he said, which is actually the worst thing that can happen to you in front of the jury if you're the district attorney, which is the judge sort of says, no, I heard him say it too. And then the guy, of course, well, I was confused. This is the quality of the witness we had in this trial. So it's very interesting. And those are fun things to watch sometimes, even more fun when you can catch them red-handed like that. All right, who's next here? Bob, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. Hey, Bob.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Carl.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, go ahead.
My daughter and son-in-law, about 2 years ago, purchased a house, renting to buy.
Okay.
So I helped them out with it. I gave them $3,000 to put down so they could move in. Their rent was $1,100 a month, with I think about $200 or $250 going towards the down payment on the house at the end of a 2-year contract. They've been in there about a year and a half, and they get a knock on the door about 2 months ago. The people saying that they owned the house. They found out that the mortgage on the house wasn't being paid through whoever they gave the house to be in charge of to sell. Now, they went to a lawyer because the guy borrowed or took a lien on the house for $20,000 and didn't do anything to the house. Right. They went and seen their lawyer, and their lawyer said that my daughter and son-in-law they have to honor the contract, that 2-year contract. But now they got to be out within 8 months. Mm-hmm. And we found out that the $3,000 that we put down on the house and all the money that's in escrow, they're not getting anything back. And according to their lawyer, they still have to honor the contract to this other guy, which means they still got to pay $1,100 a month with that other money's coming out towards that down payment, but they're not getting anything back at all at the end of this contract.
Bob, that doesn't sound completely right to me, and it also sounds like somebody offered a contract where they couldn't even seem to be able to meet the terms at the end, which is to pass title to them, right?
Right.
So I would want to take a look at it, but maybe the attorney's missing the boat. Maybe there's some information that you don't have available that I would have to see, but I'd be happy to take a look at it for you.
Okay.
But I'd have to see the contract, brother.
Yeah, because they're saying they have to honor that contract, but even though they're going to be paying rent,
I got to see the contract. I can't. Yeah. This is not the kind of question I can answer without actually reading what they signed.
Right. Well,
you can sign a contract, and remember, put this in your memory bank. You can sign a contract called Hell or High Water, meaning it has terms in it that say even if the whole world ends and explodes, you still have to pay me this money.
Well, I don't mind paying the money, but the other people want the house back. So my daughter and them got to leave. And from what we understand, even though they're going to still be paying the rest of the rent and the other money is supposed to be going into escrow, they're going to be out about.
But that's what I'm trying to tell you. I might take a different position than that if I read the contract.
Okay.
All right, brother.
All right. Thanks a lot.
You can find me on weekendappointment.com. I'd be happy to take a look at it for him and see if we couldn't take a more aggressive stance than that.
Give me your phone number, will you, please?
241
6070. 6070.
All right, brother.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, folks, with these contracts, I gotta see them sometimes to see exactly what people sign, but that doesn't sound right. What he's telling me doesn't sound right. 540-0580. Kevin, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
How you doing, Carl? I have a question as far as, civil cases. So I noticed when you take someone to court in a civil case, another person, if they don't have the money, it's like nothing happens to the person. They don't have to pay judgment. Now, if you have if a judge grants you as the plaintiff, he grants the plaintiff a success in the courtroom, and the defendant has to pay. Like, say if the defendant owns a car dealership, and he doesn't appeal within 30 days, are they obligated to pay what that judge mandated them to pay to the plaintiff, or can they just ignore it and go on like how people would do on a civil suit if they don't have them? Like if you was just suing an average person on the street and they didn't have the money, they'll just go about their business and not worry about it.
Yeah, the short answer is the judge enters a judgment, and then you have to execute the judgment in order to get paid. So after the 30-day appeal period passes, what you do is you have to then have a sheriff or constable execute that judgment.
Okay.
So technically, yeah, they can sit there and do nothing. There's no obligation to pay a judgment until it's executed against you, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yep, that's what I wanted to know.
All right?
All right.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Yep, go get him, man. Go get him. Let's see, who's next here? Warren, you're on WHP 580. Hi,
Hello?
Warren. Yeah.
Hey, this is Warren, Carl.
Hey, Warren, what's going on?
Well, I heard about the lady who had the problem with the DirecTV or the Dish, whatever it was.
Yeah.
My recommendation would be have her. That doesn't sound like she's possibly an internet savvy individual to a certain degree. My recommendation would be get some younger person who knows how to deal with posting things on the internet. Make a comedic little video. Everybody could be like leaning against the television, trying to hear the speakers, blah, blah, blah. Put it up on YouTube.
Right.
Reason being, a good friend of mine is in the music business, and United broke a $3,000 guitar. Okay, he went for them to get it corrected, and they basically told him to pound salt.
Right.
What he did was put a music video up on YouTube, and it's called United Broke My Guitar, and it's funny. Well, to date, it's got, I think, 3 million hits. And United begged to settle with him, and on top of that, the people who made the guitar, which is Taylor Guitar out in Washington State,
right,
they got so much PR out of it, they gave him not one but 2 guitars and said, keep up the good work.
Well, the short answer is obviously taking things public always has a potential to work. Of course, for every video that has 3 million hits, there are pictures of young men dancing outside the McDonald's that have been watched by exactly 3 people. So
I understand. But I'm just saying, if she had anybody that could make something funny and put up like that, who knows?
I'll tell you what she's got to do is just get a nasty gram sent to these guys. But I understand exactly what you're saying, Warren. There certainly is some leverage sometimes in those. And
for just giggles, since you know this story, it's called United Broke My Guitar. You got to see it sometime. You'll die laughing.
I'll look it up, brother. Or you know what? Why don't you post it? Why don't you go to Weekend? You sound internet savvy. Why don't you go to weekendappointment.com, register if you haven't already, and post it there for us?
I will do so in the next 24 hours, sir.
All right, brother. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, now I got two bills on hold, 540-0580. So let's see here. I'm going to go with the first bill, but they're both going to be trying to talk into the phone because they're both going to think I'm asking for them. Here, watch this. But we'll only be here one of them anyhow. Bill.
Hello.
Yeah, you're on WHP 580.
Hi. How you doing, Carl?
Good, man. What's going on?
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
No problem.
Hey, I received a notice of copyright infringement from my internet provider at the end of June.
Okay.
And claiming that I downloaded a movie using a file share program, BitTorrent. And I don't even use BitTorrent. I do have an unsecured network, and they do mention in here what the repercussions would be for me illegally downloading music and movies and everything else. And I want to know what my recourse is. I mean, even if they come in and seize my computer, they'd obviously not find anything on my computer. So
right.
Illegal, because I only purchase software. I don't download anything.
The short answer is it sounds like you didn't do anything wrong. The long story is, obviously, obviously somebody did. So two things I would do. Number one is I'd write a response to it and saying I didn't do it. However, I did notice that my network's unsecure, so I've taken steps to secure the network. Thank you.
Okay.
And of course, if you haven't, get a web key or some other very basic security, and you should be able to keep.
Yeah. Well, see, I thought just putting the MAC addresses of all the PCs that access
not enough.
My router, I thought that would be enough, but apparently not, because
Shane's say
I certainly don't. It was Shaun of the Dead. Why would I want to even watch that? I mean, come on.
Let me. Well, Shane, what should he be doing, dude? He's shaking his head over here. He's telling me something.
You just gotta stay off those kind of websites, man. Those things will bite you. I mean, I guess I don't know how it got on your computer, but that's just a really tough thing. I had a buddy that got in trouble for that.
He's saying he didn't actually go to a website or download it.
I don't look at that. I don't even know what BitTorrent is. It's not installed on my machine.
Well, sometimes if you go to other websites, like if you're trying to download something else, sometimes when it asks for a file download, there'll be files shared. And I've downloaded viruses that way, and it's really tough sometimes. You don't even realize it.
Oh, okay. Well, I certainly don't download anything illegal. I know what the repercussions are. I'm in the IT industry, and I know what could happen.
Yeah,
right.
Well, I don't blame you there, but sometimes, like I said, when you're downloading something you think's okay, a virus can come with it, and it gets really weird sometimes.
So then it makes it look. Then it does other things.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
At what point in time, Carl, do you think I need to retain your services, or at least get somebody in my back pocket in case they try to come after me?
I'd be happy to write them a letter that says this is really what happened, which is absolutely nothing, and here's the steps we've taken, which is to secure the network a little more.
Okay.
And certainly that might give you some peace of mind. I doubt they're actually going to come after you. They are just doing this because they're probably being prodded to, be a good corporate citizen and send these letters when they think something's been downloaded.
Yeah, well, I validated that they certainly did have my IP address and all the information valid except for the actual movie that was downloaded. I have no idea who could have done that, but again, could have been a neighbor, could have been a kid jumped on my network. I don't know.
Right.
All right,
well, my friend.
Thank you very much for answering my question.
Knock that network down so nobody else can get on it with some security, my friend.
Okay.
I said lock it down is what I meant to say. 540-0580, 540-0580. We'll be back after the break, and don't forget, we'll keep taking calls from 3 till 3:45 as well. I can't drive 55, and that's probably pretty darn true. By the way, I had to renew my driver's license the other day, and when I was online, I paid the big $5 and got my 10-year driver's history to see how it was looking. And there's one sitting down there from 2005, and then I saw something on there from 2008, and I'm like, now wait a minute, I was acquitted of that. That's ridiculous. How can this be on here? So I checked the records, and it looks like the courthouse has not kept PennDOT apprised, although I have a letter from PennDOT saying that they took it off my record. So now I got to go back and argue with PennDOT and figure out why I've got a speeding ticket saying I was going 82 and a 65 in Mercer County, when in fact there's no such event of record any longer. So remember, fight your traffic tickets, fight all of them. Number 2, keep them off your driver's record. And number 3, check your driver's record periodically to make sure things aren't showing up that don't belong to you. Because just like a credit report, PennDOT can get it wrong. People misreport things. The wrong information gets on there more often than you'd believe. And we actually find that we are straightening out people's driver's records quite often because there's the wrong information on there. Let's see, who's next? The other Bill. Bill, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. And Bill, I just want to remind you and everyone else, you can keep calling in from 3 to 3:45. Now shoot with your question.
Okay, my question is this. I'm a tax collector in a local municipality.
Okay.
And what I want to know is, am I obligated to take cash payments? For example, real estate bills are getting very high, and people will come in there with, maybe $1,000 or much more than that, $2,000 in $100 bills. And my concern is if one of them happens to be counterfeit and I take it, I'm on the hook for it. Do I have to accept cash?
I don't know the law about that, and that'd be an interesting question. Although it says on my dollar bill and every other currency, it says this legal tender for all debts, public and private. So I guess theoretically, you're supposed to take cash. I don't know if you have to. I know that when I went over to the Department of State years ago, back when we used to have to run filings over there by hand, before you could fill everything out online and everything. You'd file a corporation documents. They didn't take cash. They only took checks. So I always wondered about that. So I guess what we'd have to do is look up your statutory authority and see if there's any rules or regulations there that would require you to tender or allow certain types of tendering. But the other way to do it would be simply say, I'm only going to take cash or money, or I'm only going to take checks or money orders. And then if somebody were to say, or we were to determine you had to take them, then I guess we have to get you one of those nifty pens that you can scrub the bills with to see what color it turns.
I just bought one of those. I bought one of those nifty pens, but I'm not even sure that they work. I mean, I just happened to see online somebody took a coffee filter, doctored it, and it showed up as counterfeit money using the pen.
Right.
So the pens, I don't think the pens are foolproof.
No, I know. I've heard that there's some bills that can pass the pens.
Yeah, and if you're real busy, you don't take that much cash. You're not. I know most clerks that handle a lot of cash. It's routine for them. They use the pen and so on. But when you don't do that all the time, I'm afraid you forget and you don't check it, and the next thing you know, you're stuck. But I was just curious about whether or not it was a legal requirement to take cash.
For whoever you're collecting from. Here's what I would do. I mean, if you're collecting for a particular municipality, I would put it on the solicitor to research that for you.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to look it up, but I'm thinking, you know what, you got a township solicitor.
Sure,
make them answer it.
Okay.
And that way, if you have a letter from the solicitor, at least then if somebody, like one of the other officials says to you, well, why are you doing this? You can be like, well, Solicitor Bob said that I can or that I should. And you guys don't want to be on the hook because guess what? This is going to come out of the township's funds, not my personal pocket. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Well, any loss like that would have to be covered by me personally, or any tax collector. Any shortages have to be made up by them.
Oh, that's not good.
No, that's the way it is.
That's not good. All right, my friend. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Bye.
Oh, boy, oh, boy. Remember, guys, you can keep calling in from 3 to 3:45 because I'm going to sit here and keep talking to folks here on the phone. Now, the show will go off the air at 3 o'clock, but the phone lines are going to remain open until 3:45 at 540-0580. So you can keep calling in. So if you're in your car right now, you're tooling down the highway, or you're thinking, well, I don't have time to call right now, but I would in 20 minutes when this screaming kid finally goes to bed or whatever, 540-0580, and I'll get you on the bonus podcast edition. And, of course, as you should know by now, you can go to WHP 580 or weekendappointment.com and hear that bonus podcast. And, of course, if you're a friend of mine on Facebook, I also try to post those on Facebook, so you'd have it available there as well. So make sure you Facebook me if you've got an account. Sam, you're on WHP 580.
Hello, Carl?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Sam from Harrisburg calling.
Yeah, what's going on?
Hey, not too much. How you doing, sir?
Good. Thank you for calling.
Just had a question on a property easement.
Yeah.
I'm interested in buying say property A, and property B, which is the border property, has an easement on a partial piece of property A. And I was wondering, is that reversible, or can that be taken off at any time, or is that considered a permanent transaction that can't be reversed.
So the easement is on...
The easement is on property A, which is for sale.
For the benefit of property B?
That's correct, and it's the border property, and I got a copy of the easement from the courthouse, and it says full. I mean, there's terminology in there that I can't repeat as far as legal terms are concerned, but it has a full, unrestricted, and use of the land, for different.
That easement, if it's recorded like that, is going to be said to run with the land, so it doesn't go away. And the only way to take an easement away is for those two parcels to be united in one owner, and then that owner could remove the easement.
That's what this person did. He actually had previously purchased property A, and had the easement, allowed by property A from property B, and then he sold the property A. Now, I'm interested in buying a property, but don't want to because of the easement.
Right.
But I just wasn't afraid that it wouldn't be reversible without the permission from property B.
If the two properties are united in one title again, then you can remove those kinds of restrictions and easements. Otherwise, they continue to flow with the land. So we would say one's the dominant estate, one's the servient estate. If the two come into one owner, you can remove that. Although usually I'd want to see it in specific language.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thanks very much for your answers. I appreciate that very much.
No problemo.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. 540-0580. And, of course, when the show ends, if you're still on hold, don't hang up because I'll take you during the bonus podcast hour. You'll be able to hear me and get your answers. And, of course, if you do call in during the bonus podcast, you're going to hear your answers live. And then anybody else who wants to hear what we continue to talk about or find out some more nifty legal information, you'll be able to do that. Larry, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. The talk line number is 540-0580. Larry, hold on. I'm going to keep you till the bonus podcast hour here. Hold on. All right, folks, I'll see you next week. Keep in mind, you go to weekendappointment.com, download your free will kit, and send that in. Make sure you do. And, of course, you can get the bonus podcast there as well. If you're a Facebooker, friend me on Facebook, and you can keep up with my antics on Twitter as well. I'll see you next Saturday. And for anybody else that calls in, 540-0580, I'll talk to you over the next 45 minutes or so. Thanks.